Hello, everybody. Welcome to A Cult of Misfits. It's me, Matt Owens. Today, I want to talk about intermittent fasting. I want to talk about the big, scary solar eclipse that's happening tomorrow. I want to talk about disclosure and the government's role in that disclosure. And I want to wrap everything up by talking about putting yourself into uncomfortable situations for purposes of growth. Before we dive in, I want to just say thank you. Thank you to everybody who has been supporting me and what I've been doing, the content I've been putting out, and the podcast. I've been getting a lot of real positive feedback, so it warms the cockles of my heart, whatever the hell a cockle is. I can promise you it's very warm right now. So thank you for that. Thank you for everybody who is sharing the podcast on social media, sharing it with other fellow misfits like myself. I appreciate you. Thank you for everybody who's supported me financially. There's donation information below if you feel so motivated. Thank you. I'm just really enjoying having these conversations. I just had a conversation with Nathan again, our third go around, and we just had a really great talk. So I'm enjoying having these conversations about spirituality, the afterlife, interdimensional beings, all the things that I find interesting. And obviously you guys are finding it interesting too, because y'all are following me. So thank you. It feels good to have a community of people that sort of are like-minded and have similar belief systems and don't look at you like you're crazy when you talk about interdimensional beings or Nephilim, right? So, cheers to us. Cheers to us. So without further ado, let's dive in here. Let's talk about intermittent fasting. It's been on the forefront of my mind to start intermittent fasting again. I sort of get into these periods and these cycles where I'm real gung-ho about intermittent fasting because it just feels right, you know? It's these times when I'm just feeling really sluggish every day, or just kind of have a tummy ache, or just sort of this underlying bleh, you know? And so I've learned over the last couple of years, this is all new to me. I've never heard of intermittent fasting or actually applied it to my own life until a few years ago. But it all kind of started when I was having all of these issues with my stomach, where suddenly all of these foods that I previously had eaten with no problem were suddenly affecting my stomach in really bad ways. You know, like I was like, what the hell's going on here? And so I went to every doctor under the sun and the moon and couldn't really come to any solid conclusions. I took every allergy test under the stars, real cosmic in this story, guys. But it was a very frustrating process, and several of you have reached out to me over the years and said that you had a similar experience or are currently going through it now. And so I was very frustrated that I couldn't eat all these foods, and I didn't know what was affecting me, and so I had to go through like an elimination diet, and it was a whole thing. But as a part of that process, I'm thankful for it now in retrospect, because I have now been able to reintroduce foods that I couldn't eat during that time period. So, yay, peanut butter. But but it's really taught me to be more in tune and listen to my body, right? Listen to what my body's trying to tell me. You know, anytime I drink alcohol, I get this weird little rash on my right ankle. Right? It doesn't hurt. It's not itchy. It doesn't look gross. It's just, I hate talking about medical stuff. I regret even bringing it up, but it's just the weird things that our body do in reaction to what we consume, right? Whether it's food or beverage or social media or these things that we consume with our eyes and our ears and our taste buds. And so I got really in tune with my body and started playing with the idea of fasting. And now, if you haven't really looked into it, and maybe you're listening to this because you feel led to intermittent fast right now, and I'm sort of saying this as encouragement, that it's really hard to get started, just like it's very hard to get started going back to the gym. If you haven't been to the gym in a while, it's like, I really don't want to do this, but here we go. And then, you know, you start psyching yourself up, and finally you gather up what's necessary to get yourself to the gym, and you do it, or go on that walk, or whatever. So it was a practice for me. I had to really build up to it in my mind and get myself to a place where I was like, okay, I can do this. I can go without food for 24 hours. Like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's so funny because it shouldn't be that hard. Our ancestors went without food regularly, and the ancients recognized the benefits of fasting and talked about it frequently. So I don't think that our bodies are meant to be constantly crammed with food, especially food from now, at the grocery store nowadays. It's all processed and not actual real food. Shout out to Doritos. I love me some Cool Ranch, guys. No, not throwing any shade there. But so I started listening to my body more, and I started playing with fasting, and there's lots of different ways to do it. You can look it up online. I'm not an expert. I won't dive into it too deep, but, I played with different types of fasting. One thing I played with successfully was fasting every other day, right? So that way it gave me, because I feel like anytime I want to quit anything cold turkey, my personality really likes to latch on to things, got a real addictive personality. And so part of my journey is learning to balance that, right? Which I've talked about previously, and I'm sure I'll talk about again. But it's about finding that balance. And so for me, quitting sugar cold turkey and I'm never going to eat sugar again, that doesn't seem reasonable to me, nor does it sound fun to me. If we're here to have a human experience, I want to have some sugar, okay? I don't want to completely cut out things like alcohol from my diet, because to be honest with you, I kind of like alcohol. But knowing myself, I know my limits. I know that I have a tendency to go overboard with such things that I enjoy greatly, like sugar or alcohol or, weed or social media or whatever. It's hard to give up those things, right? It's hard to just take a breath for 24 hours, right? Or let alone 1 hour, putting your phone down for 1 hour. So it's a practice, right? And I had to get myself to a place where I wasn't beating myself up if I didn't hit my goal, or if I fucked up and, consumed whatever it is I was fasting from that I didn't want to consume. And loving myself through the process. And that's the hard part. That's what takes practice. It did not come the first time. Let me tell you, I definitely beat myself up hardcore. I definitely I listened to Hal, the voice in my head that's always telling me that I'm a worthless piece of shit. I have no self-control. I'll never be able to do this, right? It's about not listening to that voice and saying, bzz, quiet time. I don't want to listen to that voice anymore. And just saying, I'm trying my best. I'm on a good path. I'm going to get there eventually. I'm just going to keep forging forward. Maybe I'm not going to try this again for a few days, maybe another week. Maybe I just need to, go easy on myself. So that's part of the process too. Another way to fast is, it was the 9 to 5. So you can only eat in between the windows of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Because I often would eat late at night and then, not sleep very well, which, should come as no surprise that my body is trying to digest all of those carbs. It's always carbs, right? I'm trying to digest all of these carbs and sleep at the same time. And it's incongruous. Guys, I don't think that's a word, but just go with it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I like the 5 p.m. cutoff because then it allows me to eat what I want. I tried diets in the past, and I tried the Jenny Craig diet, I think it was, back in the day. And the thing that I liked about it is they let you eat anything you want. They didn't restrict you. They just, they did restrict the amount of food that you eat. So I can have a slice of pizza. I just can't have the whole pizza like I want. I can have a little chunk of brownie, but I just can't eat the whole pan of brownies like I want. So I enjoy the freedom behind that. So, it's not for everybody, of course, but I found that quitting something cold turkey doesn't work for me, so I have to find a balance. That's why I like the on-again, off-again thing, or having those windows that I can eat whatever I want, right? And I find that once I get into a pattern and a routine of doing that every other day or several times a week or whatever, I find that I don't gravitate towards the sugar as much or the carbs as much or whatever it is I'm trying to abstain from as much. It's like, when you go to the gym and you start working out and fast food just kind of doesn't sound good anymore. That's what it is. You just start slowly eliminating it and you're like, you know what? I kind of feel better. The days that I sometimes, the period that I'm in right now, I'm imbalanced. And so the universe has been tapping me on the shoulder saying, let's try some fasting. And so I have to talk myself into it, psych myself up, and I have to remind myself that every time I do actually fast, I feel fantastic. Yes, maybe I have a grumbly tummy because I'm hungry, but like, get over it, right? It's not the end of the world to be a little hungry. I feel like, especially here in America and maybe the Western world to a larger degree, we're sort of programmed to have 3 meals a day. And here in the US, it's like each meal is for an elephant. They're large portions. And I know that my mom was raised in a Midwest family that, you clear your plate and the plate is full. You clear your plate no matter what. And I'm not judging any of this, of course, but I'm just saying this is part of the programming, is that, you have to eat all of your food. Everything is slathered in, butter and oils and all of this stuff. And it feels weird as an American. I'm just speaking for myself. It feels weird to like skip a meal, right? To like skip lunch. Sometimes for dinner, around dinner time when I normally eat, I don't feel very hungry. And yet I kind of force myself to eat anyways, because it's like, well, I don't want to be hungry later. Really, why? Why is that such a bad thing? Maybe it's okay to give your body a rest. That's your body's way of taking a breath, right? Since I was constantly cramming all this shit down my throat and not giving my body, my immune system, my mind, my whole avatar a chance to breathe, to recuperate, right? A period of restoration. Today, in the podcast with Nathan, we were talking about that too, about taking periods of rest, being okay with not work all the time. It doesn't have to be diet, or fasting, right? It doesn't have to be hardcore like that at all. It just has to be whatever feels right to you, right? That's what I had to do. It's really difficult not to compare yourself to other people or what you think society thinks you should or shouldn't do or behave or act or whatever. Just go with what feels right. So I've been fasting. I fasted yesterday. I fasted a few days before that. And I just felt fantastic. It's sort of like a fog was lifted. I feel like my mind was firing on all cylinders. Yes, I was a little hungry, but it wasn't like I was going to pass out and I was fainting or anything. It wasn't none of that. It felt really good to just take a break. And again, I was tempted, like, well, it's lunchtime. Like, should I just eat a little something? It's like, why? No, it also shows me, I should say it's good practice to test my own limits, right? To show myself what I'm capable of. Because to be honest, there's a part of myself that's like, oh, I can't do that. I can't go without food for 24 hours. That's insane. I could never do that. But the truth is you can. The truth is I could. And so I like to prove it to myself. It's like a little skills practice. I like to show myself what I'm capable of. And then when I am able to fast for 24 hours, then I tell myself, well, let's try it again. Let's try it again in 2 days and see if we can do that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do that. Let's see if I can go without alcohol for a month. Let's try it. And some of these things are super difficult. Some of them are easier than others, right? But it's all practice. It's all just baby steps, right? So anyway, I'm going to continue fasting. It's like going to the gym. You just got to kind of keep up that momentum. So I know that if I stop this fasting cycle that I'm on, that I'll eventually stop doing it. Then I'll eventually start feeling like shit again. And then I'll have to start the process all over again. So it's better to just get a good head of steam going for myself is what I'm saying. And I just kind of keep at that pattern, keep pushing myself, keep reminding myself that I feel better at the end of the day. So just do it. And go from there. And it doesn't have to last forever. It doesn't have to be a lifetime thing. Perhaps someday it will. But for now, I'm just sort of playing with the idea of going with how I feel each day. If I wake up and I don't feel hungry, don't feel the need to make breakfast, right? Maybe it's okay to skip breakfast. Maybe your body's not into it. Maybe you're still full from last night. Anyways, let's talk about the solar eclipse. The big, scary solar eclipse that everybody's talking about. I was curious because I'm like, the ancients held a lot of reverence and spiritual meaning around these eclipses, that there was something divine or supernatural about them. This goes, all across the world. And I started thinking like, well, it can't be that big of a deal. I mean, like across the globe, there's, 5 or 6 solar eclipses every year. But I started thinking like, well, they're kind of in random spots, right? So I just looked up today how often solar eclipses happen in any one particular area. And the answer is about every 300 years. So then I went, oh, okay. Turns out they are kind of special. So we have this eclipse coming, and I kind of roll my eyes because the spiritual community is kind of going batshit crazy about this eclipse right now. And it's real easy to fall into that trap. I feel like when I first started getting into spirituality and listening to all the YouTube channels and listening to all the things, it's real easy to get wrapped up in the energy of like, yeah, something big is coming, something big is coming. And I found myself getting really excited and like the end is near, or this is all finally going down, or the savior is coming, or the paradigm shift is coming, or the solar event is coming. It's always something is coming that's going to change all of this and rescue us or reset everything in a way that's positive and beneficial for all of mankind, right? We're waiting for this big transition to the 5D or whatever, new earth or whatever, right? And I don't say it to mock any of it because I believe in most of it. I think we are headed towards something like that. But it's really easy to get wrapped up in things on the calendar, or, the 8/8 portal is coming, everybody, like, it's going to change everything, or, this full moon is going to be bigger than all the others, like, get ready, here we go. Or it all feels like Y2K. It all feels like this big buildup and like, here we go, let's do this. And then literally nothing happens, right? And so I would get really wrapped up in it. That's why I'm kind of rolling my eyes, because I got sucked into it all because it feels exciting. Like, yeah, we're a community. We all know what's coming. I feel like it helps me to relate more to people like the Heaven's Gate cult. They were the ones who were, that the Hale-Bopp comet had divine beings on it and was going to take them to the planet or whatever. And they were all waiting for it, and here we go. And then they all committed suicide, right? So who knows where they're at now? They might be on Pluto for all we know, but shout out to that crew, wherever they're at in time and space. But but it's really easy to get wrapped up in that. And I have to constantly remind myself that whatever's meant to happen is going to happen whenever it's meant to happen. We're basing a lot of this stuff too on the Gregorian calendar, which is not the calendar that the ancients were using at all. There used to be a 13-month calendar. There's a whole thing about that. And, we used to be more in tune with the cycles of the moon and the grand procession of you know what I'm saying, the grand procession of the celestial objects, right? of everything. And so we've definitely shifted to a new calendar. So when the calendar is lined up and the date is 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever, and it's like, oh man, something special is happening, a portal is opening. It's like, well, I'll believe it when I see it. Like, maybe the portal is just energetic and it's not meant to be visually seen. That's fine. I get it. And I'm not making fun of any of this because I kind of believe in all of it. But it's like, I just get my hopes up, and I don't like getting my hopes up. I don't like waiting for something to save us, because that's kind of what the energy is like, that we're going to be saved from this 3D world, or this, the Yuga cycle that we're currently in, or, whatever, right? That we need to be rescued or whatever. And we're just kind of like, I don't like the air of hope. I gave up the idea of hope several years ago. I don't mean to sound despairing, but hope is kind of a desperate energy. That's sort of how I view it, is hope, because what you're doing is you're hoping for something that's not here yet. You're hoping to be transported into a new realm, or you're hoping that, these societal things will shift and change. You're hoping that your life will change. You're hoping for something that's not currently in your now. Right? By doing that, I feel like I was constantly projecting myself into the future. I can't wait for that to happen. Rather than just being in the here and the now and recognizing that maybe something will happen during the 8/8 portal, but maybe nothing will happen. And I'm okay either way. Right? Maybe something supernatural and crazy shit is going to go down tomorrow during the eclipse. the facility at CERN is firing up their magnets and like they're going to create a black hole in this portal to another dimension. Yeah, maybe. But also maybe not. Can I be okay either way? Right? I'm not hoping and I'm not on the edge of my seat like, come on. Because I had to ask myself, what part of myself really wants something like that to happen? Right? Why can't I just be content just listening to the rain like I am right now? The rain is falling. Why can't I just be content with what the good Lord has given me right now in the here and now? So eclipses are special. They do have meaning to them. The ancients believe that, and I do as well. And I don't mean to dismiss any of it, of course. But I'm just trying not to practice, I'm trying not to project myself into the future, right? Waiting for some event. Is some event coming? Maybe. Maybe some world-ending cataclysm or, a revelation of disclosure and the aliens are among us and all this stuff. Like, sure, maybe. But at some point it starts to make me a little crazy, right? Just endlessly thinking about it and not knowing. And at some point I have to just recognize that I'm not meant to know everything. We are not meant to know everything. I heard a really useful quote a few days ago. Somebody was talking about in a podcast that stuck with me, and I'll share it with you. I don't remember who said it, but shout out to whoever they are. It wasn't me. Oftentimes I'm trying to absorb all of this cosmic knowledge and wisdom, this gnosis. But I have to remember that my human brain can only absorb so much, right? The human avatar can only handle so much energy, especially if it's that sweet, sweet divine energy, right? Cosmic knowledge, the good shit. And so in an ocean of vast cosmic knowledge that I'm trying to absorb, the quote was to imagine that I am a teacup and that I'm trying to absorb this ocean of cosmic knowledge and pour it inside my tiny little teacup. Right? It's just not gonna work. No matter how much I try. And so I'm learning to accept that I have a teacup that I'm working with here, right? That I'm trying my darndest to expand, but at some point, the human experience is meant to be limited, right? I believe I am a limitless being that is experiencing limitation. And I think that's really profound. That's what I think is happening here. Is that I am a divine eminence, a divine essence that is experiencing limitations. Limitations of the mind, limitations of physicality, limitations of whatever laws are in this 3D material realm that we found ourselves in, that we / have created for ourselves? Question mark? Right? So I try not to hurt my brain too much by diving too deeply into it, and at some point just practicing acceptance. I accept that I'm not going to know everything today. And not hoping that I'll know everything tomorrow. Being okay with wherever I'm at, whenever I'm at. Right? Knowing that I may not ever solve the riddle of extraterrestrials. I've been listening to a lot of these podcasts about just from UFOologists, and, people who, not just those, people who can easily be dismissed as fringe. That's fine. I enjoy listening to I like to hear everybody's perspective and come to my own conclusion. That's how I play this game of life, is I just want to hear what everybody has to say. Thank you very much. And I'll come to my own conclusions. So I like to hear the weirdos, and I also like to hear the scientists and the scholars. And find where I land on those issues. So I've been really diving into the ET phenomenon and extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, the tic-tacs, UAPs that are seen everywhere. And I just don't know, right? I think that there's definitely... Here, let me lay down what I think's going on here. I think that there are many different beings from this dimension and also from dimensions unknown, that are all here right now, and I think that they've always been here. And I think that they lie outside of our perception. And I think that sometimes when we interact with them, especially with these UAPs or UFOs that are seen in the sky, I think that it's some sort of a projection from a higher or other dimension. These vehicles, if you're not aware, these vehicles have been seen by military. These are military people. This is why I like listening to military people, because they tend to be real serious. They tend to not want to stand out. They tend to kind of want to follow the rules. They don't want to look like an idiot. A lot of times in that culture, from what I understand, if you claim you're seeing, alien ships flying around, you're going to get a psych evaluation. It's frowned upon to share that type of information, but I have a feeling that is sort of changing, that sort of atmosphere is changing slowly here on the planet. But for the time being, it's sort of taboo to still talk about a lot of that stuff for fear of looking like an idiot, or etc. So I think in the same way, we're seeing these vehicles that are able to move in ways that defy physics as we know them. Like there'll be they look like Tic Tacs or like a propane cylinder, like these white cylindrical vehicles that we'll see them hovering at like 50,000 feet, which is just outside the atmosphere. And then they will descend down to sea level in the period of like 1.2 seconds. Just bloop, now they're above the sea. So it defies all physics. If there was a living being inside of that thing, according to the way we know physics, that being would be turned to applesauce, right? Or alien applesauce, whatever that would be. Glue Glock, I think is what they call it. No, I don't know, I just made that up. They turn to loosh is what happens, I think, guys. They just turn to loosh. So anyway, there's these vehicles that aren't operating in a way that we understand space and time and physics, okay? The fabric of everything. And so they're real head scratchers. And so what I'm wondering is if they're just projections from a higher dimension, in the same way that we are in the 3D dimension or realm, and we cast a shadow upon the sidewalk. That shadow is a 2D version of us, right? You can still see it. It's still visible. It's just in a shadow form. It's not in my 3D Matt Owens form that we can see. And so in the same way that there are these shapes that are mathematical and theoretical that literally cannot exist in the 3D realm, like a tesseract. A tesseract is a 4D shape that our brains literally can't comprehend, but we can kind of try to wrap our mind around it a little bit. Like the concept of infinity, it's like, yeah, I kind of get it, but not really. Like, so when does it end? Our brains can't really compute that sort of thing. So there are these objects that are in higher dimensions that we literally can't comprehend that I think are sort of manifesting here in our 3D realm the same way that we would cast a shadow on the ground. And it's sort of a representation of the higher realm, but not really a complete picture of what it actually is, right? As above, so below. If you missed my last episode, and I talked about the emerald tablets, which is where that phrase, as above, so below, comes from. So if you're interested in hearing about Hermes, Trismegistus, and Thoth, the Egyptian god, and the emerald tablets, super interesting, check it out. But where was I? It's just this idea that I think that if you want to believe what the ancients have all told us, across the board, all the continents, all the origin stories, they all talk about these divine beings coming down and living amongst us. They all talk about how the gods created us. And I think that this might be, and that the gods lived amongst us and took over territories eventually and bred with the humans and created these monstrosities, and all of it had to be wiped clean through the Great Flood. But I think that they've always been here to some degree. And from what I understand, there's these guys from these UFO research teams that the government's put out to just sort of look into the whole UAP phenomenon. Guys like David Grush, one of the guys that testified before Congress saying that all of this was real. Guys like that, his job, and I tend to believe him, but I'm not 100%, by the way, for those of you that are interested. I mostly believe what he's saying, but it's just kind of, he's so dodgy. There's so many things that these guys can't talk about because of classified information, but I don't fully understand how the system works. How come they are like, yeah, okay, sure, you can talk about all these things that you saw, but don't talk about that, and don't talk about that. Like, how come they're letting some things through and not other things? Also, these are guys that often work in branches of intelligence agencies, and I already have a general distrust of the government, let alone the intelligence agencies and these, secret arms of the government that are operating, behind closed doors and without impunity and no oversight, and nobody knows what the hell they're doing. I just got a lot of questions, right? So these guys that are in charge, I listened to the British guy, I don't remember his name, but he's kind of a big deal in the UFO communities, but the British guy that was in charge of their UFO investigative arm, what these guys report time and time and time again, all these different officers, they're saying, you know what, a part of the reason why it hasn't been released yet, part of the reason why they're hiding it is because of public reaction, and I don't know what that means. They don't ever elaborate on what the public reaction might be, but I have a feeling it has to do with religion of some sort. And it's going to be something that is either going to shatter people's worldview, like telling somebody that there is no God, or that Yahweh was this divine being, but he died, or there is no God, but our God is actually just a bunch of aliens from a different dimension. Like, I think that would freak a lot of people out. And what these guys are reporting also is they're saying that there's a lot of people in the Pentagon, for example, and these branches of government that have a religious belief system that aliens are demons. And that's still a very prevalent belief within these parts of the government. And so I think a large part of it is that maybe these beings are repulsive looking. Maybe they look like demons and would scare the shit out of 90% of the Earth population, right? Maybe it's something that's just really disturbing on a visceral level, like they either look disgusting, or that I believe there isn't just one species or whatever you want to call it here on the planet, but I definitely think there are benevolent beings here that are guiding us and watching after us as the ancients told us there are. But I also believe that there are malevolent beings that are up to no good, right? That are interested in chaos and destruction and darkness. And then I think that there are beings everywhere in between, right? Across the whole spectrum. And it just makes me think, right? But I think a large component of disclosure is going to be people being okay with their idea of how things work being shattered. And, I haven't heard too many people talking about it. In conversation, I like to bring up the David Grush thing in front of the Senate and what he talked about to people in conversation. And some people are interested in it, but most people are like, oh yeah, crazy. I don't know. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. And that's it. Nobody is surprised. Nobody's blown away. Nobody's like, nah, come on. Everybody's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. Sure. My uncle thought he saw something one time, or they tell me a story. And so I don't think disclosure is going to be, surprise, there's aliens. I think that we're past that. I think that most people understand that reasonably. But I think that there still is a fear, especially amongst those who consider themselves religious. I've spoken to several of them myself that believe that they are demons. And that there's some dark shit there that we are not meant to touch or deal with, right? I was thinking today on my walk that another possibility is that the reason why the government has not been disclosing this stuff is because they're using the technology. There's often these crashed craft, right, that have non-human biologics on it, whatever that means. So there's these non-human beings on board these crashed aircraft that the United States government and other governments, I assume, have recovered, and that they're reverse engineering this technology to try to use it for military purposes. So part of me wonders if part of the big secrecy is around this technology or things that the government has discovered about the nature of reality itself, or this technology that would fundamentally change human civilization in a positive way, but instead they've chosen to take that technology for themselves in order to use it for military purposes of power and control. And they're too embarrassed to let all of us know that they've found this amazing new technology that will allow them to visit other worlds, perhaps, or to visit other dimensions, or to speak to these beings in a real way. But that they're selfishly keeping it for themselves for military purposes, right? And I think that'd be very interesting if that were the case, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. And this is just a hunch. This is just sort of a feeling that I'm playing with. They're obviously because I always wonder, like, why are they hiding it for so long? It has to go beyond, like, the public can't handle if there's aliens. It has to go deeper than that. So either it's that they've always been here and that they're invisible to us currently, but they're literally everywhere watching us. That would freak a lot of people out. That would freak a lot of people out to know that, you turn on the light switch and there's 20 interdimensional beings in your kitchen staring at you. Right? So maybe there's a reason why they keep themselves invisible to us. Because I wonder if it would scare the shit out of us. Or most people, right? Thinking there's an invasion or something, right? Going to the worst possible scenarios. It's not to say that they're not demons, because I believe there are demons. But what is a demon to me may be different than what a demon is to you, just a malevolent energy or a malevolent being, right? And I think they're here too, and I don't think they're meant to be feared. I think perhaps they feed upon our fear in some way, right? The idea of loosh or our spirit juice, let's just call it spirit juice, guys, that they're suckling our sweet, precious spirit juice. I like that better than loosh. So yeah, I definitely think there's some of that going on too. But, these guys from the military who are studying and investigating all of what these guys, their job is if you reported that you saw something, they would go and interview you and ask you what you saw, what time of day, what did the craft look like, can you draw a picture? Like, they actually want to get a good idea of what's going on here and compile that information. And what these guys come back and say is that 95% of all UAP sightings is something that can easily be explained. They said that sometimes they got to get the evidence, they got to put the pieces together, they got to work it out, but with 95% of all the cases they interact with, they know what it was. Whether it was some classified drone or some government thing, some reverse engineered something that the government created, that's probably what it was. And to us, it may look like a UFO because we don't know what the hell they're creating, right? Not just the government, but really they contract this stuff out to these aerospace corporations that are able to keep the secrets better than the government is. Because they're a private corporation, you can't look at what they're doing at all times. So I believe that also there needs to be more transparency with the aerospace companies that are allegedly housing all of this alien technology, right? So 95% is accounted for, but they all said separately, there's about 5% of cases that they have no idea what the hell that was. No explanation for what that was, no explanation for how it behaved that way. It's just a big question mark. And so that's what I care about. That's what I find very interesting, right? So I'm curious to see if Congress will do another hearing, and I wonder if part of the government's plan is to kind of slow roll this stuff out, because I think that it's going to be very incriminating to them, right? They're going to look real bad in this. And so that's why I feel like they're holding it real tight to the chest, because they know, I think, that the people are not going to be happy. The same thing with the JFK files. They still remain classified who knows why. It's because they would implicate themselves in it. And I think that the government, various branches, I think they all were sort of, I was going to say gunning for JFK, but that's literally what they were doing. So no pun intended there. But yeah, I think that it would imply, I think that the documents, when they come out and are unclassified, it'll show that the government did it, right? And I don't think that they want to start admitting some of the things that they've done. So they just try to keep it tightly wrapped. And I'm also curious on a deeper level just how long this is going to play out. How long do they think they can keep it? I feel like we're entering a time of transparency. I talked about this in the podcast at length with Nathan as well, that I think, and he believes as well, that that we're entering a time of transparency. I talked about how we're entering a time of the apocalypse. The apocalypse translates to a revealing. It translates to a revealing of something that has been covered up. So I think we're entering this time of the apocalypse where we're starting to see things that we haven't seen in a while, right? I don't think the government was always so secretive, especially not to this level that it is today. I think it started around World War II. It started with when the U.S. started creating these nuclear bombs and this nuclear technology. I think that's when the government started keeping wraps on stuff and secrets on, secret projects and classified information for, military purposes and keeping the country safe, etc. And it's just been ratcheted up ever since then. And I think we've just been giving away our liberties ever since then, especially after 9/11, etc. And so I'm really curious how much longer this is going to last. Right? Because nothing lasts forever, of course. And I'm not insinuating anything, violent or dismantling the government or anything, but I'm just curious about how this is going to unfold, because the government seems really intent on keeping a lot of things secret from us. And a lot of Americans are sort of waking up, and other countries as well, are sort of waking up to like, oh, hold on a minute now. This is a government of the people, for the people, and you're being real sneaky over there. And I don't like what you're doing over there. But I feel like a lot of us, myself included, feel helpless, like there's nothing we can do about it. And I don't think voting is the answer, because we're just voting more politicians into the cesspool, right? Into the great machine that has just sort of taken over everything, that is run by the corporations. And I didn't expect to go on a political rant, but I just feel like we're sort of heading off a cliff here. I feel like most people aren't aware that there's a very good chance our economy is going to collapse in the very near future. Like, I don't know if you guys are aware of that or not, but the government just keeps creating more and more money, which it loses its value if you do that. I'm not an economist. I'm not even an expert at all in this. I just have a very basic understanding of how the economies work. And we're going downhill real fast, right? The administrations, all of the administrations, not just the current administration, but they all do it. But the current one just throwing all of this money at the wars and giving, billions of dollars to Ukraine while, Americans are suffering, and they all do it. I'm not just pointing my finger at the current administration. And it's very frustrating that no matter who we put in the chair, they all kind of fuck it up, right? And I've gotten fed up with it. I don't vote anymore. I don't follow the news anymore. I just don't want to play the game anymore. And I feel like when enough Americans or enough citizens finally decide that they're fed up enough, then that's when something changes, right? When people aren't able to buy groceries anymore like they used to, or when it costs too much money to live where they currently are anymore because their dollar is becoming more and more worthless every day because the government is pumping out more and more money every day. Like, this is where it's going, right? We're heading towards economic collapse. And I don't know. I don't listen to the podcast. I try not to think about it that much, because then I start getting fearful is what it is. So I try to come at it from a place not of fear, but of just like, I have to trust and believe and know that I'm going to be taken care of, that my loved ones are going to be taken care of, no matter what, by the universe, by God, not by the government, certainly. And so I have to just remind myself that no matter what, I'm going to be taken care of, that at the end of the day, it's going to work out, right? Even though it's scary, we're often put through these difficult times and these trials in our lives because it helps us to grow, right? That's the whole reason I believe that our soul, our spirit, our true essence is here in this experience, is because we're here to learn and grow. And if we didn't ever experience anything that was uncomfortable, such as a depression or a recession or war or fill in the blank with whatever is causing misery, right, and suffering, and realize that that's why we're not in paradise right now, because we're not meant to be in paradise right now. Our soul has chosen to experience this 3D world to grow. So what I've been doing the last several years is, once I sort of realized what was going on here, that, to not worry so much about things in the physical world, to practice living in the world but not of the world, right? By disconnecting from all of that, by not throwing my fist in the air about the government and all the things that they're doing wrong, and those people and the bad guys and, the tyrants and all those bad people and what they're doing, and to sort of just detach from all of that. And it was very healthy for me to do. I started feeling lighter once I did that, because I wasn't attached to any of it anymore. I wasn't getting wrapped up in it anymore. It was so freeing for me. But I just have to remind myself that these periods of going through the fire that we go through on a personal level and also on a national and global scale, that they're all happening for a reason, as above, so below. It's all for the expansion of the all that is. It's all for the expansion of our consciousness, right? So what I've started doing these last several years that I've found very useful, very difficult, but very useful, is intentionally throwing myself into uncomfortable situations for purposes of growth. And so early on, when I kind of started playing with this whole spirituality and looking within and, trying to be balanced and, addressing why do I respond and react that way, that's kind of how my journey started out. I started realizing that I often cared a lot about what people thought about me. And I wanted to get myself to a place where I was free from that. A place where, man, I wish I was like those confident people who just don't give a fuck, right? Like, I really look up to people like Elon Musk in the sense that he or Donald Trump, because they're people who don't give a fuck what you think about them. They're going to be Donald Trump no matter what. They're going to be Elon Musk no matter what. And they're going to act and behave exactly how they want, without any fear that you're going to make fun of them. They literally don't care. Or at least they act like they don't care. But I think that it's genuine, right? So I wanted to get myself to a place like that. I'm like, I want to get there. And so how do I get there? And so what I decided to do was to put myself into uncomfortable positions intentionally that I knew where I thought people were going to make fun of me. For example, I used to be very body conscious, and I know that most people talk about it like it's an issue with girls only, girls having body image issues, bulimia or whatever. But it also a lot of guys do, and I know there's a stigma around talking about it. That's why I talk about it. Just to be transparent and vulnerable and not be scared of people making fun of me or thinking that I'm wimpy or whatever the voice in my head is trying to tell me. It's all just stories, all just nonsense. So I was very embarrassed of my body. I'm not blaming her, but my mother grew up as a child model. And so looks and beauty were always very important. Her mother always made sure that she was beautiful and perfect and her hair was done, and she had to look like a model all the time, and there was a lot of pressure around that, around body image issues and having to look the right way, etc. And so that, of course, translated down, and I had body image issues. I always felt like I was too fat, And I was about 80 pounds heavier several years ago, so I have lost a bunch of weight as a part of that process I was talking about earlier of intermittent fasting and listening to my body and starting to exercise and stuff like that. So I actually was significantly fatter, but it's not about that. It's about just being comfortable with who you are, right? And so that's difficult for many of us, myself included. So I wanted to get myself to a place where I didn't give a fuck what people thought about my body, right? And so one of the first things I did to start stepping in that direction, as an example, is I had just bought a brand new button-down kind of like a dress shirt, right? Like a nice looking shirt. And so at the time I was married, we were going to a friend's barbecue, but it was more of an acquaintance. I didn't really know anybody there. I kind of didn't know this person that well. I had previously dealt with a lot of social anxiety that I have worked through successfully the past several years, but almost crippling social anxiety, going to barbecues and parties and holiday shit and all that stuff. And so I was already stressed out because I didn't know anybody there and how long are we going to have to stay? And I always want to just be the weirdo in the corner, just on my cell phone, because I don't want to talk to anybody, because I don't want to fucking talk to anybody. That has changed, by the way. I've changed, but, so I was already very stressed out and uncomfortable, and I put on this, new shirt to go to the barbecue. And it was kind of tight. It was kind of tight around the chest and the shoulders, but it was a great pattern. I liked it. I was like, I don't know. So I went into my wife at the time, and I was like, what's the deal with this shirt? Is it too small? Like, did I fuck up here? Or like, is this passable? I don't want to look like, because I felt like a Chippendales dancer. I felt like I was wearing this skin tight shirt, to show off my pecs. And I felt like, putting baby oil over my body. Like I kind of felt gross a little bit, guys. So I was like, I don't want to be pervy. I feel kind of like this might be uncomfortable. And she looked at me and she was like, and I always appreciate honesty, and she was always very honest. And so she was like, well, yeah, it's a little tight. It's a little tight. And so I was like, damn it. Okay, I knew it. Because I was kind of excited to wear the new shirt. You know how you get like, I can't wait to take this out for a spin, right? So I want to take this thing for a spin. I can't wait to show everybody. And then I got a little deflated because I realized it's borderline inappropriate to wear this shirt. Like, it's really tight. So kind of dejected. I took it off and I was going through the closet trying to figure out what else I was going to wear to this stupid barbecue. And then Spirit whispered in my ear and said, remember how you're trying to conquer your fear of other people judging you? Now is a perfect opportunity to wear the shirt that's too small. And I was like, oh boy, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know if I'm ready for that. That seems kind of like a lot. So I thought about it. I was kind of pacing back and forth. We have to leave in like 5 minutes, so I can't think about it all day. So I'm like, I don't know. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to step outside my comfort zone. I'm going to do something that makes me really uncomfortable, honestly. It wasn't a little uncomfortable. It made me very uncomfortable. So I buttoned that shirt back up. I put it on. I felt like I was in a sausage casing. And my wife came out from the bathroom and she was like, oh, are you still wearing that shirt? And I said, yep, I'm wearing the shirt. And she's like, okay. And so we went, and I was very, very uncomfortable for the first 5 minutes that I was at the barbecue. And then I thought, you know what? Who fucking cares? Who fucking cares? It's just a shirt. It's just a piece of fabric. Nobody's looking at you, right? I had to continually tell myself this in the corner as I was away from everybody. Because I had to remind myself that, if there's somebody wearing an ugly shirt or something that's too small or whatever, I don't care. I know a lot of people are judgmental out there, and There was times in my past where I was judgmental, so don't get me wrong here, but for the most part, like if I can see somebody's butt crack when they're bending over or something, I don't give a fuck. Like, okay, cool, whatever. And I've kind of always been that way. So I had to remind myself, like, if somebody's wearing a shirt that was too tight, I literally would not care. So nobody's looking at me, and this is all in my head, and I'm just going to stop thinking about it. So that's what I did. I just stopped thinking about it, and I was like, it's just a shirt, it's just a shirt, it's just a shirt. And then I got through it, and I felt like I had gone through the fire. And it may sound silly to you if you don't have any body image issues, or if it sounds like a silly example, but just fill in that blank for whatever it is that makes you uncomfortable, right? That makes you nervous that people are going to judge you. And so that was my first step in practicing getting into the habit of pushing myself outside that comfort zone, making myself feel uncomfortable, right? Because when I left the house, I always had to make sure that every single hair on my head was perfectly combed over. I had hair product in it, so it looked perfect. I had to make sure that my shirt was ironed. I would iron every single shirt before I left the house. Sometimes my pants too, sometimes like my jeans. I was very anal about making sure there wasn't one wrinkle on my outfits. And a lot of it has to do with how I was raised, where my mom would often have us look perfect and have to be presentable, right? And so I got into this programming of, there's no blame there either, of course. I'm just giving you context. But these are all just challenges that we have in life, right? There's no blame for my mom. It's just like I'm thankful to the universe that I had those challenges that I could now overcome, right? So it's all just about practice, about growth. So I never wanted to leave the house without looking absolutely perfect. Like the idea of going to the grocery store in my pajamas was mortifying. Like that's completely off the table. I won't even think about doing that. So then guess what I did? I went to the fucking grocery store in my pajamas. Because I don't want to be scared of that shit anymore. Right? These are the things that I do. And I had to walk down every fucking aisle, up and down. We're doing this like a parade. Right? Beating our fears. So I go down aisle 1. Oh, this lady's looking at me. Oh, is she wondering why I'm wearing pajamas? Who fucking cares? Moving on. Aisle 2. Right? Oh, these people are kind of looking at me. I bet they're judging. Who fucking cares? Moving on. Aisle 3. And I keep doing it until I don't care anymore. Right? Until I release it. Goodbye. Not scared of you anymore. So for those of you that are looking to cultivate more confidence in your life, to care less what people think about you, these are some of the things that I do. And the final example that I'll leave with you is several years ago, the universe suggested that in order to face this fear, that I try stand-up comedy. And I was like, nope, I am not doing stand-up comedy in front of an audience. That seems too scary, too big, and I'm not interested. Well, the universe is persistent, as you know, and so I continually got that nudge to try stand-up comedy. So I was like, fine, I'll try stand-up comedy. So I have been a big fan of stand-up comedy my whole life, essentially, thanks to my dad. My dad was always a big fan of stand-up comedy. Him and I eventually, as I got older, our preferences and tastes diverged. He was always really into the clean, squeaky clean stand-up comedians, no swearing, no dirty talk. And I sort of branched out. I like the smut guys. I like, the curse words never bothered me. So, he sort of, planted that seed for me of stand-up comedy. So I thought like, well, I do kind of understand the format. I've always kind of been a fan of listening to stand-up comedians talk about the art form and, the buildup of the joke and the punchline and sort of bringing the audience in. The whole thing fascinated me. And so, I sort of studied it, right? Like I used to study my uncles when I was growing up when I was a kid, because my uncles, they were funny guys and everybody laughed with my uncles. And so I just sort of stood in the corner like the weirdo and took notes mentally and like how to be funny, why did that get a laugh, but that didn't get a laugh? Analyze. So I thought like, well, me doing stand-up comedy is not outside of the realm of the impossible or the insane. So I was like, you know what? I'll view it as a challenge. I'll do I'll do an open mic night, so I had to go online to see what the parameters were and what the nights were, and so I had to come up with, I can't remember exactly, I think it was 3 minutes. I had to come up with a 3-minute bit with new material that I obviously had never written before, so I thought, okay, I can do 3 minutes. So it turns out it's more difficult than it seems, right? Like, it's hard to write jokes, let alone jokes that are actually funny or entertaining. So I spent several months sort of creating this solid 3-minute set, and I was practicing every day, practicing, trying to memorize it and try to figure out where to punch that word and maybe delete that word and bring this over here and mention that first. And it was all a creative outlet for me, and I honestly really enjoyed it. So now I've got this 3-minute set ready to go, and now I've got to pull the trigger and actually go and do it. So I got to actually go and do the hard part. So I ended up going down to, it was downtown Seattle, and just scared out of my mind, right? Like, just like chugging coffee, trying to just nervously remember what I was, my bit, and so I signed up, just nervous the whole time. And finally they called my name up, and I was like, get up, right? Like, part of me was like, don't get up. And that was just the fear. So they called my name, and I got up to the stage and nervously said, like, hey guys, this is, my first time doing stand-up. And they all kind of cheered. They were all encouraging. And I was like, okay, I can do this. So I started doing my set, and I was getting laughs, and that encouraged me to, the fear started to melt away, and I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, people are laughing at what I'm saying, and I'm kind of feeling like on cloud 9 over here. Like, this is pretty intoxicating, actually, having all these people laugh at you. The thing is, when you're on the stage with the bright lights, you can't actually see any of the faces, so you just kind of like feel their vibe and just hear the laughter, right? So it felt so good. I ended my set perfectly, got a big laugh, got a bunch of, everybody was applauding, and I was like, I felt like I was on top of the world, right? I felt like the funniest person alive. I felt like the most talented comedian that had ever been born, right? I just felt amazing. And so I thought, yes, I went away on that just high, thinking about it and reliving it in my mind. Like, after my set, I went to the bathroom because I had to pee because I was so freaking nervous. And as I was in the bathroom, all these different guys were like congratulating me, saying, hey man, that was a great set. That was really funny for your first time. Like, that was great. And I just felt like a superstar. So I thought, like, well, it took me a few months to write a 3-minute set. I'm going to write another 3-minute set. Like, let's do this. So I spent another month or so, spending all my time honing in this new 3-minute set. Hilarious jokes, making sure the punchlines came at the right time. Just like, it's an art form. And so finally I got it, and I'm just ready to blow their socks off again. So I signed back up again for another open mic night a few months later. And still a little nervous, but still kind of confident, to be honest with you. Like, well, if they were blown away last time, they're gonna love what I got tonight. So 3 minutes of new material. I hopped up behind that mic, real confident, and I started my set. And every time that I came to the place in my set where people were supposed to laugh, nobody laughed. It was just fucking crickets. And I was mortified. I was bombing big time. People weren't laughing. It wasn't like polite chuckles. It wasn't like, somebody trying to like, oh, okay, I guess that was kind of funny. 0% laughter. It was completely silent in the room, and I had to stay up there for the longest 3 minutes of my entire freaking life, right? Just totally eating it for 3 solid minutes, and I could feel every eyeball in the room. Even though I couldn't see them, I could feel them, and they were all glaring at me like, get off the fucking stage, boo. But they didn't boo me, but it was brutal. And so that concluded my stand-up career. I officially did it twice, And I'm not opposed to doing another open mic now. I feel more comfortable speaking in front of people, but that's the whole point, is the universe was like, do you want to pursue this? Because I know that if I wanted to, I could, and I believe I could be successful at whatever I put my mind to. Thank you very much. And so can you. But I thought about stand-up a lot, and I was willing to put myself back up there again and get back on the horse. I didn't want to feel like I was quitting after one bad set. Like, give me a break. Because I know that's just part of the game. I definitely know that there are A-list stand-up comedians that definitely go up there and just bomb, depending on, everything. The energy of the room, the mood, the comedian's mood, a lot of factors, right? So I was really questioning if I was giving up, and I didn't want to give up, but I didn't like the idea of creating a structured dialogue that I say over and over again every night, because what that meant for me was down the road, if I was going to start becoming a comedian and traveling and going on the road and performing at these different places, essentially I'd be performing the same set over and over and over and over again, trying to hone the set, right? And that did not sound very appealing to me. It didn't sound appealing to me to work on the same set, eventually with the goal of creating, 30 minutes of solid material and eventually 60 minutes of solid material or whatever, to sort of work my way up. I didn't know if I was interested in that process, because it seemed creatively restrictive to me at the time. Oh, it still does, honestly. I like the idea of doing a podcast. That's why I sort of sidestepped, because I was like, okay, I can see why the universe is pushing me to do more things in front of a live audience. I just don't necessarily want it to be in front of a stand-up audience. So as long as I'm performing live, because when you go live, if you haven't done it, going live on Instagram or live on YouTube or whatever, or live on Twitter like I record, it's scary as hell. Even if there's just one person watching you, it's like there's somebody sitting there listening to what I'm saying live. So I don't want to fuck up. I don't want to stumble my words. I don't want to act like an idiot. You start getting into your head and it fucks with you, right? So I felt like I can see why the universe is pushing me to do this. So I'm choosing to do podcasting instead, or YouTube or whatever. And I just started pursuing that. So for the last several years, that's what this journey has been about for me, is just sort of finding this niche where I feel comfortable. And I finally do feel like this is sort of where I'm meant to be. I like the format of these podcasts because I don't have to just say the same thing every night to you guys over and over again like a comedian would. I have the freedom to talk about whatever the hell I want and to kind of riff off of whatever happens to be popping into my brain at the time. And sometimes it's really deep and philosophical, and sometimes it's silly, and all of those are okay. That's just a part of this process. So I'm the type of person that always sort of has that need to have a creative outlet, and so and to sort of feel like I'm living on the edge and sort of right on the edge of my comfort zone, right? I always, when the podcasting becomes too easy, then it's time to start mixing stuff up a little bit and trying something new. And so that's exactly the reason why I've been having these conversations on the podcast with Nathan, and looking to bring other people on the podcast as well, because I'm used to talking by myself, and now I'm stepping outside my comfort zone and talking with other people, right? And balancing what it's like to have a conversation on a podcast successfully with somebody. So those are some of the things that I did in my own life to just sort of continually push myself outside my comfort zone. I also found that oftentimes when I was in a rut, and I was feeling listless, not even depressed, but that's usually sort of an underlying current to it as well, but just sort of feeling the doldrums, like, nothing matters, who cares about any of this shit, right? Like, life is meaningless, all that, all that stuff. I find that a good old-fashioned shove out of my comfort zone will often get me out of that funk, right? Because now I got to start thinking on my feet. Now I'm in new territory. Now if I don't start swimming, I'm going to sink. So I need to figure shit out. And so I found that it's a really useful tool to kick my own ass outside of my own comfort zone. Don't ask how I do it, guys. I'm very flexible. No, I don't know. But not just for purposes of growth, but it also helps to just shake things up a little bit, shake the energy energy up, right? When things get a little too comfortable for me. And then I find that feeling of being in a rut sort of dissolves, because now I have something new to concentrate on and to focus on, rather than all of the things that are wrong in my life, or all the things that aren't working in my life, or that I don't have in my life. And so, yeah, that's part of the reason why I started doing this. And now I still struggle with it today, this stepping outside my comfort zone, but I've been doing it so often as practice that it's sort of becoming second nature. Like I talked about fasting, that took me several days. It actually took me about a week to finally, okay, fine, I'll fucking fast again. And then I did it and I was like, ooh, that felt really good. Like, what took me so long to do that? I felt really good. So this is just maybe to encourage you, using my own life as an example. Some of the things I do to shake it up a little bit and move the energy around a little bit and try new things a little bit, right? So cheers to all of you who are along this journey on this human, adventure we found ourselves in. Cheers to us. Cheers to the challenges. Cheers to, the solar eclipse and, the nature of this reality and this fun little journey we're on. So love you guys. Until next time. End transmission.